Conan Exiles is a true open-world survival RPG. There's a bunch of games out there that claim to be an open-world survival-based RPG, but no, this one is the real deal. You'll die to humans, you'll die to the environment, and even a bunch of other dumb stuff along the way. This is one of those games where the world can be unforgiving and terrifying, but also give you this incredible sandbox to do pretty much whatever you want. And all in the background are a ton of in-depth systems to build up your character via attributes, crafting, and even now sacrifice and sorcery. And you can do all of this either in single player or online with others if you really want an unforgiving experience. Conan Exiles is basically what Bethesda planned for Fallout 76 to be, where you look over the horizon, see a couple of people walking towards you, and you genuinely get stressed. Turns out, in Fallout 76, those people walking towards you probably just want to give you some free resources. The community was way too nice. That is definitely not the case here, and when Conan Exiles reached out to sponsor this video, it seemed like the perfect time to show you what a true open world survival RPG is all about. And if you like what you see, you could use my link in the description to get the game for yourself. One of the biggest things you'll notice in Conan is how unforgiving this world is. You have a short introduction with the Chad Conan freeing you from a stake, as well as a variety of other options with the character creator. But as you move past that, you are immediately thrust into this world with nothing, and even in a way worse than having nothing. There's lots of games where you start off pretty weak and you need to be careful in the early game, but in Exiles, you start off in the middle of a desert with literally nothing around. You need water to survive in this game, so inherently starting off in a desert, very bad. You basically have to beeline it immediately to the water so you don't die of dehydration within the first couple of minutes, and that's really a good encapsulation of what this experience is all about. There is no tutorial here. You have some loose guidance with a series of quests known as the Journey, but otherwise the really special part about Conan Exiles is you can kind of just do whatever you want. The game gives you all of these tools, sometimes quite literally, like you'll have to make tools to get certain things, but also figuratively. And your job is really just survive. And then maybe eventually, after a lot of hours, you can start to strive. But early on it is survival against the elements, getting yourself built up with tools, food, and actual shelter, none of which will come easy. And I feel like that's one of the other pretty notable things about this game. Everything has a pretty notable cost associated with it. Crafting is a cornerstone of this game, and although you can get loot from combat, the vast majority of the time, if you need something, you're gonna have to make it. It's not like you just chop down one tree and you're set with tools for the game. No, you're gonna have to chop down a lot of trees and then upgrade your tools, then chop down more trees or mine other things. A big part of the gameplay loop here is going out for resources, then coming home after a hard day's work to spend those resources on either building something, upgrading something, or just something else entirely. And this is actually pretty fun because what you find out in the world of Conan Exiles can be incredibly threatening, but also just kind of beautiful. There's a massive open world here with all kinds of different biomes and environments, and I feel like as you go through these, as you start to explore in this game, you really start to recognize each of these has their own identity. There are all kinds of creatures you'll stumble upon that will absolutely attempt to kill you, and you're gonna have to try and fend off against that, and you'll probably fail early on because even just doing a 2v1 is pretty unrealistic. Things hit very hard in Conan Exiles, especially before you have armor. And since you can play this either as a single player game or online, it's not like one of those games where it's a fake option. In Conan Exiles, it's a real option. You could have a lot of fun playing by yourself, but of course playing online is a completely different experience. In the early days of Fallout 76, the devs described how if you look over the horizon and see another human, you'll be really nervous or scared on who that is, what that is an NPC or a player. Yeah, that is exactly the Conan Exiles experience. Whenever you see a human in the distance, you do a double take, like, okay, how's this gonna go? If you die, you could lose everything in your inventory and you'll just respawn at your closest bed. And although you will find other players in the online mode, there are also just regular human NPCs in all of the modes. You'll stumble upon these human-made settlements and these guys will attack you. They don't want you there. You'll get shot at by arrows, get into sword fights with them, and they are very deadly. This is not something to be taken lightly. Seeing a human in Conan Exiles, especially in the earlier half of the game, is basically always scary. But of course, as you start to get into the crafting systems, as you do have a couple of successful supply runs collecting resources around your now slowly fledgling base, you will be able to fight back against these threats. There's a knowledge system here, which is basically going to be a tech tree. As you level up, you'll get points to spend here, as well as unlock new things to spend points on. And this is more or less the cornerstone for everything. You have to learn how to build or craft certain things, but you can get some pretty strong things. You get swords, spears, and even bows are all readily available, as long as you have the resources and feats to make them. This is where the RPG mechanics start to come into play. You have a bunch of different attributes to choose from in Conan Exiles. Naturally, like many RPGs out there, depending on what you spec points into, you could be become very good at certain things. But there are also going to be choices here. As you spec down certain attribute trees, you'll unlock perks, and with the most recent update, they give you even further specialization, so you'll be able to pick between one perk or another as you get down these trees, with of course some of the best perks being at the end that could seriously upgrade your character, but you're gonna have to spend a ton of attribute points to get to them. And this isn't just for the brawlers out there. These aren't just combat focused, but also things like crafting stamina and even just general survival or leading around other humans. But also, as the name does suggest, the most recent update to the game, known as Age of Sorcery, added in Sorcery, which is a new in-depth system that almost acts as a counter to the other skill trees. Unlike the rest of Conan Exiles, you have to invest in this. You don't simply unlock sorcery, it's not just an attribute you pick. You're gonna have to actually find sorcerers, take them out, get a map to where to unlock sorcery for yourself, and this involves a lot of traveling, probably taking out a bunch of sorcerers. But once you actually get this, it is gorgeous. This is easily some of the best spell-like animations I've seen in a video game. And what this will do is give you a bunch of abilities, from utility to strengthening your character, and even some other pretty powerful things as you get later in the trees. But sorcery here is really meant to be a dark art. As you actually get deeper into this tree, you'll become corrupted, and you'll actually lose some of your stamina and health as you become a more powerful sorcerer. So there's a true trade-off here. You have to decide, what do you want to be good at? Sorcery isn't just a clear right answer. And one of the pretty wild parts about this game is, all throughout this video, I've really just been focusing on the survival components, actually focusing on combat, some of the systems around that. But that is really only one side of this game, as it has a massive and major building component as well. And building in this game is probably one of the most satisfying building systems out there, because you really feel like you're building something up. Early on, you'll go around, mine a bunch of stone, chop down a bunch of trees, spend a good while doing this, and realize, oh wow, that was only enough resources for like half a house. And not even really a house, more of a shack. You have to invest into your buildings. It'll take time and resources, and even some of the knowledge tree and feats will unlock new and better things to build. And this is not one of those games where you could kind of just neglect a shelter. You'll need this to stay alive, and there's a lot of threats out there. You'll feel genuinely safe in your little homestead. But the building comes out in full display as you actually get on servers. People do some pretty insane things here, and actually adds to the world building overall. You'll inevitably stumble upon some very menacing or just outright massive group bases on servers. These are just daunting by their sheer presence around you. With the most recent update, building got a fairly comprehensive overhaul, giving you a ton of new tools to make building easier, as well as it's just a lot more intuitive to use now. You could build things more quickly. And I imagine for some of you, especially coming from some of the Fallout games that do rely on building, you're like, hey, this game sounds fun. I don't really want to survive though. I just want to build. The recent update brought a creative mode, which is one of the other pretty cool implementations here. I like how this creative mode is added. Basically, to use creative, you don't start a separate server, but it's on a regular survival server. And instead, you turn on the creative mode, which allows you to fly around and have unlimited building resources, so you could build up your base, but then you switch back to regular survival mode and have to survive now with the base you just built yourself. So if you don't want to worry about collecting all of the resources or dealing with your health and survival as you build, this is kind of a cool mode to see how much you can actually build. People are definitely building cities with this thing. And overall, Conan Exiles is a very interesting experience. It has a lot of those familiar RPG elements of speccing down a certain path, or even just finding the right weapon type for you. But this game will definitely make you work for that. You'll go out looking for resources and just die, because this world can be unrelenting, but also beautiful. As I mentioned earlier, the atmosphere at times, as you're venturing around to different biomes, is just pretty epic, and it really does drag you in. And all of this is really just scratching the surface of what is possible here. This game is a true sandbox, and I'm really only talking about the earlier to potentially the early mid-game. Towards the late game, you can get incredibly powerful, and the Age of Sorcery update only adds further options with that. But the devs have made it clear that Ages are going to be a permanent addition to this game. There's going to be free gameplay updates for Conan Exiles going forward that'll be supported by battle passes and cosmetics if you want them. The goal here being to evenly pace the updates, but giving an easier time to players who do want to support the growth of the game. So overall, if you like what you saw here, if you want to try a true survival RPG with an open world, basically what Fallout 76 was supposed to be, you can check out Conan Exiles using my link in the video description. With that said though, as always, again, I thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.